I'm going to give you three facts. Three facts from the same war, the same week, the same world. After each fact, I want you to stop and think about what it means. Because when you put them together, when you see all three in the same frame, the conclusion is unavoidable. This war has turned. Fact 1. On May 9, 2026, Russia's most sacred national holiday, the day Russians celebrate defeating the Nazis, Vladimir Putin held his Victory Day parade in Moscow's Red Square. He has held this parade every year since 2008. Every year, tanks roll through the square, missiles are displayed, military hardware is paraded before the cameras and the world. This year, no tanks, no missiles, no military hardware at all. Russia's defense ministry cited the current operational situation, bureaucratic language for the tanks are all in Ukraine, and we can't bring them back for a parade. For the first time in nearly 20 years, Russia's annual showcase of military power had no military power to showcase. Fact 2. As of May 2026, Russia is actively recruiting convicted criminals from its prison system to fight in Ukraine. Cash bonuses, monthly stipends, early release, entire units built from prison populations. Vladimir Putin is running out of volunteers and running out of middle-class men willing to go to the front, so he is going to the prisons. CNN's analysis described it this week. Putin is running out of impoverished Russians or convicts to sign up and then lose in poorly planned meat grinder assaults. Fact 3. In March 2026, Volodymyr Zelensky personally traveled to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. He deployed 230 Ukrainian drone experts, pilots and engineers, to 5 Gulf countries. He signed long-term security agreements with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Ukraine's drone pilots are now operating in the Gulf, shooting down Iranian drones alongside local forces. Japan is considering buying Ukrainian drone systems. Zelensky has turned Ukraine into the world's leading drone defense exporter. 3 facts. 1 conclusion. This war has turned. Part 1. The parade that told the story of this entire war. Let's start with the parade, because the empty space where Russia's tanks used to roll is the most powerful visual metaphor for what 4 years of this war has done to Vladimir Putin's military. Putin restored the Victory Day military parade in 2008 for a specific purpose. He wanted to show Russia, and the world, that the Russian military was back. After the chaos and poverty of the 1990s, after the humiliation of Soviet collapse, after years of institutional decay, Putin was rebuilding Russia's armed forces. The parade was the annual proof of that rebuild. Every year the parade got bigger, louder, more dramatic. T-14 Armata tanks, RS-28 Sarmat intercontinental ballistic missiles, rows of armored personnel carriers, fighter jets, helicopters, thousands of soldiers in perfect formation. The parade was not just a celebration, it was a message. Russia is powerful. Don't forget it. On May 9, 2026, the 81st anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany, Russia held the parade. There were soldiers, about 1,000 of them, marching in formation. There were fighter jets flying overhead. There was Putin at his podium giving his speech. And on the streets where tanks used to roar, where missiles used to roll on giant transport vehicles, there were screens. Pre-recorded video footage shown on giant monitors of military equipment operating at the front, because the actual equipment could not be brought back to Moscow for a parade. The tank force that Putin spent 18 years rebuilding was stuck in Ukraine, destroyed, damaged, or too committed to the front to be pulled for theatrical display. The Kremlin said the hardware wasn't at the parade due to the current operational situation. Everyone understood what that meant. And Zelensky understood it with perfect clarity. He issued his now famous presidential decree, giving Russia permission to hold the parade, with the GPS coordinates of Red Square included, and the world laughed, shared, and understood. The parade had no tanks. That is not a footnote. That is the story of this war in a single image. Part 2. The Convicts. Inside Russia's recruitment crisis. Now let's talk about fact 2, because it requires some context to fully appreciate. Russia began offering prison recruitment incentives in 2022. The Wagner Group pioneered the model. Its founder literally walked prison corridors, offering freedom and cash in exchange for military service. By 2023, it was standard practice. By 2024, it had expanded to regular Russian military units beyond Wagner. By 2026, it is the ongoing reality of how Russia fills its battlefield gaps. Here's why this matters strategically. A volunteer army, men who choose to fight, has certain qualities: motivation, commitment, the belief in what they're fighting for. These qualities matter in combat. They affect how soldiers perform under pressure, whether they retreat or hold, whether they follow dangerous orders or find reasons to avoid them. A prison recruit army has different qualities. The men are there because of an incentive, cash and freedom, not because of belief or commitment. When the battle gets difficult, the calculation changes. The rate at which Russian forces have surrendered to Ukrainian robots and drones, which has become a documented and increasingly common occurrence, tells you something about the motivation of the men Russia is sending. CNN's analysis used the term meat grinder assaults to describe Russian tactics. That term is precise. Russia advances by sending waves of soldiers at Ukrainian defensive positions, accepting that many will die, betting that the defensive line will break before the attacking force runs out of bodies to send. It's working. But at a pace, 70 meters per day, that suggests the defense is not breaking easily, and at a human cost that Russia can only sustain as long as it can find the bodies to send. Prison recruitment is Russia's answer to that math. But prisons have limits. Russia has approximately 700,000 people in its prison system. Not all are capable of combat. Not all are willing to take the deal. And as the deal has become more widely known, as Russians understand what early release for military service actually means in practice, the pool of willing convicts may be shrinking. Russia is not about to run out of soldiers, but the quality of those soldiers, and the motivation driving them, is a factor that does not appear on any battlefield map. Meanwhile, on the Ukrainian side, robots are taking prisoners. Part 3. The Gulf Deals, when the world came looking for Zelensky. Now fact 3, the one that most directly answers, this war has turned. When the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28, 2026, Iran responded with a massive drone and missile campaign across the Persian Gulf. Iranian Shahed drones, the same family of drones Russia has been firing at Ukraine for years, swarmed the skies over Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan. Gulf states had money. They had American air defense equipment. They had the infrastructure. What they didn't have, 4 years of actual experience shooting down exactly these drones. Ukraine had 4 years of exactly that experience. Within days, Gulf phones were ringing to Ukrainian numbers. The Washington Monthly, which obtained interviews with Ukrainian defense industry insiders for its April 2026 analysis, described the frenzy. Some reached out to the government. Others courted drone manufacturers who reported that their phones were constantly ringing. Qatari officials physically flew to Ukraine. They toured drone factories. They visited weapons testing sites called polygons. They watched Ukrainian operations. And Zelensky, who understood immediately that this was a strategic opening, moved. He deployed 230 drone experts to 5 Gulf countries: Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan. These were not diplomats. These were active pilots and technical engineers sent to do actual work alongside local forces. By the 4th week of March, Ukrainian drone pilots were operating in the Gulf, partnering with local air defense forces, shooting down Iranian drones in real time. Ukraine was fighting Iran's drones in the Persian Gulf, while simultaneously fighting Russian drones at home. Zelensky personally flew to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. He signed long-term security agreements with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. He promised more were coming. Japan, a country whose post-war constitution restricts military activity, a nation that has been pacifist by policy for 80 years, is now considering buying Ukrainian drones. This is not what a losing country does. This is what a country that has built something the world needs does. Part 4. The transaction. What Ukraine gives and what it gets. Let me explain the economic and strategic logic of these Gulf deals, because it is more sophisticated than it appears. Ukraine brings to this relationship battle-tested drone expertise that no other country possesses. 4 years of real combat, real adaptation, real innovation under fire. The knowledge of how to defeat specifically the drones Iran is using, because those are the same drones Russia has been firing at Ukraine. Ukraine also brings defense industry capacity, approximately $55 billion per year in production capability, more than double what Ukraine's own government can afford to purchase. There are Ukrainian factories that can produce drones, components, and systems that Gulf states can buy. The Gulf brings to this relationship money. Gulf sovereign wealth funds and defense budgets dwarf what Ukraine can spend on its own military. And, crucially, missiles. Ukraine's air defense systems consume interceptor missiles at a rate that Ukraine cannot fully sustain on its own. American-supplied Patriots, German Iris-T systems, Ukrainian-made systems, all of them require missile replenishment. The Gulf states buy American air defense missiles through U.S. military sales programs. They have stockpiles. They have logistics. They have the munitions that Ukraine needs to defend its cities against Russian drones and missiles. NBC News confirmed this week that Russia's most intense attack of the year against Ukraine came at precisely the moment when Kiev fears the Iran war is leaving it short of critical air defense munitions. Zelensky's Gulf diplomacy is, at its deepest level, an exchange, drone expertise for air defense capability. It is Ukraine finding a solution to its munitions problem from an unexpected direction, the same unexpected direction that the Iran war accidentally created. Part 5. Historical context. How far Ukraine has come. Let me put all of this in historical context, because the distance between where Ukraine was in February 2022 and where it is in May 2026 is one of the most remarkable turnarounds in modern military history. February 2022. Ukraine is given 72 hours to survive. CIA and Western intelligence assessments say Kiev will fall within a week at most. The U.S. offers Zelensky evacuation. He says, "I need ammunition, not a ride." He stays. The city holds. The country holds. 4 years later. Ukraine has produced 4 million attack drones in a single year. It has sunk the Russian Black Sea Fleet from its own occupied port. It has developed ground robots that take prisoners without human soldiers. It has deployed 230 experts to 5 Gulf countries. It has signed security agreements with Saudi Arabia and Qatar. It is developing AI-driven unmanned systems trained on 4 years of real battlefield data. Russia has lost so many tanks that it cannot display military hardware at its own most important annual parade. It is recruiting from prisons. Its Black Sea Fleet has retreated from Crimea. Its morale is, according to CNN analysis, experiencing palpable collapse. Its war has now lasted longer than the Soviet Union's entire involvement in World War II. That is the distance between February 2022 and May 2026. Russia thought it was invading a weak, dependent country that would fold. It found a country that turned the invasion into a 4-year innovation laboratory and emerged as the world's most experienced drone combat nation. That is the meaning of Fact 3. Not just that Zelensky sold drones to the UAE, but what it represents. That Ukraine, under fire, under sanctions, under siege, built something the world needs. Part 6. Why the war has turned. What that actually means. I need to be precise about what I mean when I say this war has turned. I do not mean Ukraine is about to win. The front line in Donetsk is still contested. Russia still controls approximately 75% of the region. The daily grind of combat has not stopped. Ukrainian soldiers are still dying. Russian soldiers are still advancing. What has turned is the strategic picture, the underlying balance, the trajectory. Here's the military logic. Russia's strategy has always been attrition. Outlast Ukraine, overwhelm it with numbers, advance slowly, accept losses, Bet that Ukraine runs out of men, weapons, and Western support before Russia runs out of soldiers. Ukraine's drone revolution attacks all three legs of that strategy simultaneously. It reduces Ukraine's human losses. Robots take casualties instead of soldiers. It increases Russia's human losses. Drone warfare is most effective against advancing infantry, exactly what Russia uses. It opens new supply lines. Gulf deals provide air defense munitions that weren't previously available. And Russia's recruitment crisis means the men Russia is sending to absorb those drone attacks are increasingly unmotivated, undertrained, and drawn from the least capable segment of the population. CNN's Nick Payton-Walsh said it. He truly now has the cards to carry on fighting. The cards Zelensky has are drone superiority, Gulf partnerships, a defense industry that is stronger than when the war began, international relationships that are deeper than when the war began, and a people whose will, demonstrated 4 years running, has not broken. The cards Russia holds are numbers, territory gained at enormous cost, nuclear weapons as an implicit deterrent, Chinese oil purchases keeping the economy partially alive. Those are real cards too. The war is not over. But the direction of the strategic balance has shifted. That is what "this war has turned" means. Closing. 3 facts that changed everything. Let me close where I opened. 3 facts. Putin's Victory Day parade had no tanks, because the tanks are all in Ukraine, advancing at 70 meters per day. Putin's army recruits from prisons, because volunteers are running out and middle-class Russians have found ways to avoid the front. Zelensky sold drone expertise to the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Jordan, because Ukraine spent 4 years under bombardment building the world's most advanced drone combat capability. One parade without hardware, one army without volunteers, one country that has become the world's drone superpower. This war has turned, not because Russia has given up, not because Ukraine has won, but because the side that was supposed to lose in 72 hours is now teaching the Gulf how to fight. And the side that was supposed to win in 72 hours is showing videos of tanks at its parade because the real ones can't come home.